we do. Is there a silver bullet? No, there is not. What do we call all of these things that we put together? Have you heard the term defense in depth before? Everyone heard that term? Okay. Have you heard the term the onion approach? Multiple layers. As we break through one, there's another one. Contingencies in place. So, in the first half of 2017, 2 billion records compromised. First half of 2017. By 2020, more than a quarter of the world's population would have been breached. Interesting? Scary? Concerning? Do you agree? Are these figures higher than you thought previously? Do you think there's a bigger problem that exists than maybe you may all have been aware of? Yes? No? Maybe? So, don't get worried or concerned about necessarily what individual items are. Take everything we have discussed, and the reason we're doing this is one of the things in my experience that we found is that in our industry as professionals, we assume there's an inherent level of knowledge because we play in the industry. And so we come and we start talking enterprise security and SIEM and SOC and CERT and analytics and threat hunting and APT and forensics and investigation and incident remediation, and we talk enterprise language to people and they go, what? Huh? I've got an antivirus. Okay? And there's a gap that exists because no one knows why we're talking about that or why it's relevant. And so this first session, and hopefully this is informative for you, this first session is just setting the foundation. Because when we start talking Kaspersky Enterprise, and let me tell you what, having been in the industry 27 years and specializing in 17 years in cyber, there are many vendors, and I've represented a lot of them. And when I came across Kaspersky's enterprise offering, I was like, oh, my technical nerd side went, oh, that's so friggin' awesome, that's so cool. My business side went, finally, a vendor that understands the business implication and is not trying to position and sell a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, but is trying to address a business need from a holistic approach. And to get you guys to that point and that part of the session, this part of it's important. So when we look at a traditional IT security model, go back to that picture, right? We are talking firewalls, denial of service, internet access, data loss prevention, networking, endpoint security, all of these things. So from an organizational perspective, we talk IT security. What does all of this have in common? What does it all have in common?
Protection.
Beg pardon?
Protection.
Protection. But it's all technology, isn't it? And so think about your customers. They all want to protect their stuff. And what do? They buy products. Kaspersky, vendor A, vendor B, vendor C. And when those vendors, when you go and position at your customers, or they ask you about products and solutions and companies, they're comparing features and functions, right? So who's got the best features, who's got the best functions? And to play in this space and be a world leader, would you agree that all the vendors all do about 80% of the same thing? Okay? Remember I opened up the conversation with the difference between a proof of concept and a proof of value? Why do a proof of concept? They're all going to do it. They're all going to offer pretty much the same thing, right? Where's the value in terms of vendor A or vendor B? And more importantly, it's technology that is being used to solve the issue. But is technology enough? What is technology? What does all of this give us? The 60% that we need, right? So how do we bridge that gap? That's cybersecurity. That's how we bridge the gap. And so the concepts have changed. And so when we map this out and we look at an organization, in the network space, we got to look at external attacks, right? What other things? Spam and phishing, hacking, data loss, misuse of internet. Our endpoints, malware, misuse of devices, malicious unwanted applications. The list goes on for you to read. Data, theft, leakage. Webs, privileged accused, database, identity theft, credentials, governance, risk, and compliance. Now all of a sudden a business doesn't need to just protect its endpoint with virus and its perimeter from traffic coming in and out. It needs to look at all this stuff. And are there solutions and vendors? Yeah, of course there are. As I said, if I'm an endpoint vendor, I'm going to punch you why you need endpoint as number one. And I've had the fortunate scenario where I've worked for endpoint, data center, and perimeter. So depending on what hat I put on, I can sell you on whichever one of those you need is the most important. Cybersecurity is not about that. Traditional perceived sense of security, all the things that we know, all the terms that you know. So guys, there's no one single vendor out there that can offer a complete end-to-end silver bullet solution. That's the first thing you need to remember. You need a holistic, integrated approach. Now, many companies and customers have multiple vendor solutions, right? A preferred supplier for endpoint, a preferred supplier for data, a preferred supplier. So whether it's Cisco, Fortinet, Checkpoint, and a million others, Sophos and the like, all from a perimeter side, whether it's all the AV vendors. No one can do it. There needs to be a shift. There has to be a paradigm shift. Okay, so what do we do as an industry? What do you do for your customers? What do we do as distributors and as vendors? Well, we can supply web application firewalls. Do any of you sell web application firewalls to your customers? Do any of you use web application firewalls? Any of you use database integrity monitoring or sell it? Do any of you sell fraud protection, SIM solutions? SIM solutions you sell? Great. Do any of you sell any DLP solutions? Disk encryption products? Yes? Any of you sell anti-malware? I certainly hope so, because that's why you're here. Or what if it's for our vendor? Device control solutions? Application? So let's talk for 2 seconds Kaspersky. One of the world leaders. Where? The space. Would you agree? Okay, finally I see everyone nodding. That's great. Okay, because it means we're talking to the right audience. So Kaspersky play here strongly. Do any of you do next-gen firewalls, email security, or web security? Yes? I see everyone nodding. Okay. So these are the solutions, the technical solutions, the products that we sell to address those business requirements that we spoke about. I love this picture. A picture says 1,000 words. I know, I've been in this situation. I'm sure some of you have. Who's played this game as a child? Or as an adult even? I'm 49 and I still love playing it. Who's ever played this game? Anyone? At the amusement park, little models pop up and you hit it, and as the one jumps down, the other one jumps, and you've got to keep hitting them everywhere as quickly as they come up. That's cyber. That's IT security. As you put a new AV product in, there's an exposure on your network. You close the network down, there's exposure on the data center. This is your network manager, your IT manager, your CTO, your CIO, your CISO, your operations guy, your technical support guy. Okay. Nowadays, technical support guys don't wear suits. They go in jeans and t-shirts, shorts and flip-flops. Okay. The reality is, that is what our industry is like. We are busy, we are productive. Are we effective? How many people here think that your customers have implemented an effective security strategy? Okay, let me swing that around. How many, and if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, these are our business partners. We don't have any customers in the room? There are customers? No customers? How many people here, customer or reseller, think that the customer is effective currently with their strategy? Or that you are effective currently with your strategy? This is not a judgment. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just calling a spade a spade. Because if we don't know where the challenges and vulnerabilities exist, how are we as an industry supposed to take a solution to to a customer. Again, cyber is not about the old school approach with the stick. You're exposed, you're using the wrong AV, you're using the wrong vendor, you're going to be breached, you're going to lose all your money, your business is going to close. That's IT. Cyber is saying, what have I got? Where am I exposed? And so we start introducing new words into our vocabulary. And when we start talking enterprise security, the new words that we start introducing are vulnerability, risk, exposure, number one word that defines enterprise security. He's going to finish the word for me. That is enterprise security in a nutshell. What does visibility give me? Shows me what's going on. So let's think about it this way. I love this slide. I've been using this slide for the better part of 20 years. 20 years in presentations I've used this slide. Okay? So, data security, doesn't matter what it is, what it does. We've got that end user, right? And can we control the end user? What's the one thing we can't protect against? Unintentional malicious. Human nature. Okay? That's the reality. Ladies and gentlemen, the gap is growing bigger. We are falling behind. We are losing the cyber war. That is a fact. Okay? Do you know, or are you aware, and this talks to your point, Judith, about some of the threat, the landscapes. What are we now? 2017. 2015, I was interviewed on SABC News in South Africa. I don't know if you recall, there was that whole Nigerian syndicate with the courier services. And it was one of the, it set precedent, it was one of the first cases where Nigerians were tried in a South African court. Nigerians and South Africans were tried in an international court because of cybercrime. Okay. So, cybercrime is a global industry now. Recall I opened up earlier saying, describe a hacker to me. Is it a teenager? Is it a middle-aged person? Is it a smart PhD or whatever? It has gone from just being painful and monetary gain and financial gain to a full-blown industry that in 2015, the revenue generated from cybercrime was more than the full international drug trafficking trade. Okay? Are we all in agreement that the drug industry is probably one of the highest revenue industries globally? Trillions, not billions, trillions of dollars. Cybercrime exceeded that. 2015, the total loss in cybercrime was more than the total global third world countries' GDP combined. Do we have a problem, ladies and gentlemen? Pretty scary. You have farmers, you have guys that all they do is collect data. Their job, and those are typically kids, is to onsell that data. You then have the miners, the guys that get that data, sift through it, extrapolate information. They then take it and they sell and they use that to create credit cards, fake accounts, identity theft, and they sell that up the line to syndicates. Syndicates purchase it. They then wrap it into attacks, zero-day attacks. We talk about the dark web. And they then onsell it as products. Do you know that you can buy, and this is fact, any of you that like information afterwards, I'm happy to share it with you. You can buy a cyber attack online like you would with Amazon or any retail thing, where I log in and I say, what is it I would like to do? I'd like to purchase a denial of service attack, and that is $100. And who's the target? The target is Standard Bank, South Africa. And what is it you'd like to achieve? When would you like to launch this? I'd like to launch this on the 29th of the month. Okay? And would you like any input for that? No, it's fine. If I can click like that, do I need to be a technology person? Do I need to be an IT person? Could I be a disgruntled employee because they fired me? Could I be a customer where I just didn't like the way Standard Bank charged me interest on an account? Is $100 a lot of money? If it was $10 to plant a Trojan, and I said, hey, here's launching my new cyber attack website, choose your service, send a Trojan, send a piece of malware, send a worm, send a virus, launch a spear phishing attack. And I can go on as easy, and this is the truth, as easy as that, click, click, click. Here's my Bitcoin. I don't even need my own credit card, so they can't trace it back to me. Launch that attack. That's our cyber industry right now. It changes the landscape. It changes it from the teenager sitting at his computer to, if you look at Russia and you look at China, you have got 12-story buildings with 1,000 square meter floors. The Chinese cyber army is an official army. How many people are in the Chinese cyber army, guys? Take a guess. Good number, take a guess. 560,000 people. Most countries don't even have a normal defense force that size. And that's the Chinese cyber army. And all these guys do, the only purpose, each floor is a different purpose. Some is to attack financials and get bank card details and then create fake credit cards. Some is nation-sponsored attacks against the US. Some is against certain industries. Take a massive shipping freighter with stock that's on its way across the ocean. And I just take out its GPS coordinates and leave it stranded. What do you think it does to the supplier of those goods going? What do you think it does to the consumer of those goods waiting? What happens if I do that to a whole fleet? What happens if I actually take them and run them into each other? You hear about the German infrastructure, the whole rail system being taken offline? Brought the country to a standstill. And new airports going offline. Oh, okay, how does that affect us? Well, imagine the stuff you see in movies with all the traffic lights connecting at the same time. Let's take it a step further. Imagine hospitals with people in operating rooms on heart transplant machines. Is that happening? Yeah? Still not applicable to you? Imagine you have a pacemaker.
What has just happened recently is we had an incident in Kenya where it was in the papers actually. The hackers were using some of the corporate setups just to slingshot attacks. So they would just not directly attack the companies, but they would.
Thank you for that, yeah.
Slingshot. So it's actually even there in the papers. It was last week.
Perfect. And I want to come back to that point in a second. Anyone here got a pacemaker, have a father, mother, grandparent with a pacemaker? Everyone know what a pacemaker is? Regulates your heartbeat. How do they program it these days? They don't cut you open and take it out, program it, put it back in. They take a device, they hold it wirelessly. And therefore, program it. What happens if I hack that and I change the pacemaker? Still not relevant? What happens to your brothers, sisters, fathers, family members, cousins, friends that work in mining? And I take control of the air shafts via ransomware. And I say, pay me $1 million or you're not going to be able to switch your air on. And I don't pay the $1 million. And 6 miners die. Does IT security relate to death? No. Does cybersecurity relate to death? Is my story about the mine? Am I exaggerating? Or is that something that just happened? Who thinks it just happened? November 2017, last year.
The bomb in the US was raised, right?
Yeah, that was taken down. Remember there's something called Stuxnet?
Yeah,
Took down the nuclear reactors.
2010.
Okay? That could have a nuclear explosion in the Middle East. Would that has resulted in a World War III? I think so. But take the mines. November 2017, last year, one of the top 3 mines in South Africa, which I cannot tell you who it is, but I can tell you categorically what happened. They were hit with ransomware. They stopped the elevator shafts going down, and they stopped the airflow going in. They were hit with the ransomware and asked to pay $2.2 million. Is $2.2 million a lot for a mine? Nah, they didn't pay. Guys didn't switch on the air. 6 miners died. One incident in one day, in 1 month last year. Trust me when I tell you this happens 100 times a day globally. These aren't scared tactics. It's just telling you that this is the relevance of what is happening. So this full-blown cyber industry, we need to move away from technical to a non-technical. We need to move away from tactical to a strategic approach. We need to look at solutions, quote, enterprise, close quote, as opposed to a product sell. We need to be proactive. Thank you for that word at the very beginning. That is key to the whole cybersecurity, as opposed to being reactive. We need to evolve. Okay? It's as simple. It is as simple as that. Evolve or fail. Done. Do you agree, ladies, gentlemen, that table? Yes, no, maybe? Yes? Yes? James? Okay. Is financial the number one motivator? Is it the only motivator for cybercrime? No. Reputational damage, financial damage, penalties, intellectual property theft, disruption, malicious, espionage, state-sponsored, sabotage, physical damage, death. These are our motivators, ladies and gentlemen. It's no longer about a hack and an endpoint protection and getting a bank card or account detail. So what do we need to do? Next layered approach. Okay? We need to combine policies, processes, people, procedures, products together. We need to broaden the scope beyond technology alone. So hopefully in this introductory session, I've explained why traditional IT security, which is technology focused and is reactive and is a preventative mindset, is not enough. We need to move to a cybersecurity mindset, which says that IT and technology is a component. And we need to do all these great things that we've been doing, and well done, and keep it up. We need to have it, keep selling those solutions and products. But it is that exposed portion that we need to take a strategic view on. And that, okay, is a holistic approach of an organization. So how do we do it? Well, you will find when you start talking to your customers about cyber, it is a C-level, board-level issue. Why? IT guys, technology guys, backup departments, network departments, ops, customer care, and all the like, they're responsible for their line of business. Can you take one of your IT or one of your customers' IT support guys or IT manager, stick him in a room with the CEO, and tell the CEO why you want to buy a new firewall, why you need budget? Do you think he's going to be successful? No. Can you take that CEO and tell him, go down to the ops room, chat to the network manager, or the DBA, and tell the network manager why what he does supports your business strategy for growth, expansion, revenue, profit, and risk mitigation. Do you think the CEO will be able to communicate that to the IT guy? Probably not. So this gap exists in language. But only the C-level understand the whole business environment. Only the C-level understand the IT environment, what's required, environment, not necessarily technology. Only they understand the threat environment. Why? Because the liability and the responsibility and the ownership shifts to C-level. Why? Compliance, risk, regulation, legislation, law, best practice, standards, frameworks, all these things. So when you start looking at our traditional cyber security model, and you start saying, what's cyber security? I just like to pause for a minute here. Because I like to, don't look at me, look there. I like to see people's expressions on their face. That's like contemplating, that's like, what the hell? That's just smiling as in, oh my, that's, oh shit. That's very interesting. That's, I'm not looking. That's, that caught your attention. Has that caught your attention? Okay. So, where does IT play? IT kind of plays around here. Hardware, access control, data, the like. This, ladies and gentlemen, is cybersecurity. Now, the good news is, don't get overwhelmed. There are lots of colors and there's lots of bubbles. But what's important from this, less important than the individual, can you all read that from there? I'm very close, my eyes aren't working. What this is saying to you that IT plays here. But when we talk enterprise, enterprise is driven by frameworks and standards. ISO, NIST, SANS, best practices. We're taking the people and growing them. We're taking security operation centers. Okay, you mentioned you sell SIM solutions. So you understand the concept of SIM and SOC. And the policies, processes, the people. We need to look at vulnerabilities. We start talking these terms here: vulnerability, risk, exposure, visibility. We look at threat intelligence, global threat intelligence. What's relevant happening on the global stage that's relevant to our industry, our company, and our life. We look at risk assessments, security posture analysis, vulnerability assessments, penetration tests, and all these terms start coming into it. We look at governance. What laws are in place? What's legislation? What's regulation? What's compliance? Am I a bank? Do I have to be PCI compliant? Do I protect cardholder information? Are you familiar with the term POPI? South Africa's got a new law, POPI, that's come into effect. Protection of personal information. So now, no longer are you a bank having to protect financial information. I could be at an amusement park and I'd sign an indemnity form with someone's name and age and ID number and whatever. I now have to protect that information. I've got to show how I protect it. How does that relate to cybercrime? But it does, because of compliance. GDPR. Everyone heard of that term? And if not, then if there's one message I leave you with, is going to be around GDPR. GDPR is a global compliance that has been released for protection of all EU citizens' data. It's applicable to every country on the face of this planet that has, holds, contains, or interacts with any European Union citizen's personal data. Is this applicable to Uganda? Yes. Are there going to be consequences? Well, I don't know. Is your legislation and your regulator firm? But you know what? It's not about them. Why is it so important? It's controlled by Interpol. So whilst local governments may not have the reach or the bite to enact it, Interpol will. So if there's no other conversations that you have with your customers, Ask them, do they work with, hold, control, or use any European citizen data? Hotels, tourism, banking, hospitality. They have to be GLP compliant. GLP compliant is not about IT. So governance and legislation and laws, this is what is applicable. So the way forward, rather than a scattered approach with segmented products and vendors, let's look at a holistic approach around solutions. So I told you that first number, 7 billion, was at the end of November last year. At the 27th of February this year, so December, January, February, 3 months, how much has that number grown by? These are live statistics, by the way. I'll share the information where to get it. How much has it grown by in 3 months? Come on, guys. 2 billion. 2 billion records in 3 months. Are we starting to look at exponential growth? $2021, $6 trillion. How much is $6 trillion in shillings? Okay? What are we going to be spending now in 2018? What are your customers and globally going to be spending on cybersecurity? $1 trillion. How would you guys like a piece of that pie? Okay? I think we would all like a piece of that pie. Even if within Uganda we're spending 0.001% of that revenue that we receive. Damn, in South Africa we could get 0.5% of that revenue. We'd be happy as an industry. So just finishing off on this section, we spoke about first distribution, how we play and what we do in this space. What's important, and the division that I represent is the cyber or network and security division. So when we start talking cybersecurity, these are terms that we're going to introduce into our conversations. These are terms that we're going to introduce into the language we use to talk to our customers. We're not going to talk about malware anymore. We're not going to talk about viruses. We're not going to talk about firewalls. We're not going to talk about exploits and breaches. Why? Because when we start talking enterprise security, more importantly, Kaspersky enterprise security offerings, we assume that the base is taken care of. The language we need to start using, that you need to start getting familiar with, and this is what we'll go through in the next session, is cybersecurity awareness.